last book of our inaugural Culture in Between book club is called Fatty Fatty Boom Boom.
Great name.
Very funny name, I know. So Fatty Fatty Boom Boom was written by Rabia Chaudry. I really hope I pronounced that correctly. I tried to look up pronunciations and I heard some different ones. So, but anyway, Rabia Chaudry is you might know her for her intense advocation of her childhood friend Adnan Syed, for him to be released from his murder conviction. And that actually served as the uh, subject of the first season of the very popular podcast Serial. So, so she is kind of the inspiration for the first season of Serial, which is pretty cool. Um, I personally am not into true crime
Me,
stories because
I'm
they
a
creep
scaredy
me
cat.
out. But
I know it's a very popular theme
yes,
or genre in podcasting.
but I just wanted to point that out because you may know Rabia from that. Um, and that with that being said, you don't need to know any background on Rabia in order to enjoy Fatty Fatty Boom Boom, because this book is not at all about her career or her work. It is actually just about her journey with her weight, which sounds like it has nothing to do with her culture, but it actually does have a lot to do with her culture. Fatty Fatty Boom Boom, as the name suggests, is about Rabia's struggle to lose weight, her struggle with being overweight. Um, she really goes through her whole life, pretty much from birth to now, and just all the different fluctuations her weight has taken over that time. And the way that it ties in with her culture is that um, she talks a lot about Pakistani food because her parents are both from Pakistan, and she actually was born there, but moved very early to the U.S. with her parents. So a lot of the food that she grows up eating is Pakistani food, and I didn't realize that there's actually a lot of like ghee butter and different ingredients in Pakistani food that aren't the healthiest. And she loaded up on that. But also, I think this will later tie into one of my favorite things about the book is that she makes a really interesting observation about how her parents, being immigrant parents, kind of actually led to her growing up with very unhealthy eating habits because her parents just weren't aware that American fast food and American packaged food could be so unhealthy for you. They just didn't know that when they first moved here. I'll get into that a little bit more later. But yeah, so that actually kind of led to her having these unhealthy habits. And in part it because she was actually the first child in her family. She really bore the brunt of that because her younger sister and brother did not have the same issues with weight that she had, um, because her parents had kind of learned from their mistakes with her. But yeah, so it's just interesting hearing her talk about that. I'd never really thought about that or explored that idea before. So that was an interesting aspect of the book. Um, Rabia also does a really great job of talking about her past trips to Pakistan, especially when she was younger. She just really describes them in such vivid detail. Um, in particular, there was a time when she describes a wedding. Her I believe it was her aunt's wedding in Pakistan, and just the customs surrounding it. And it's just so interesting. It was so interesting hearing that. I'm actually kind of skipping around. I think that was my favorite moment of the book was her describing just the events leading up to her aunt's wedding and her aunt's wedding. There's a lot of mishaps happened on the way to leading up to the wedding, and there were just things that cultural things that she didn't quite understand, like the fact that her aunt was really sad in the days leading up and just looked really like almost depressed and downtrodden. And apparently that is actually just a cultural custom in Pakistan when or surrounding weddings, that the bride is meant to be sad because she's leaving her family, and joining another family. So that was interesting seeing it through Rabia's Rabia's child eyes, because she was a child at the time, and she was like, why she's like, why is my aunt getting married if she's sad? Like
Mhm.
like this doesn't make sense. Aren't weddings supposed to be happy? So that was just really interesting. And just the way that the street culture in Pakistan is described, it just seems so lively and colorful. And so I really loved that about the book. So as this suggests, this is kind of like a memoir of Rabia's life. It does particularly focus on her journey with her weight, but it also explores her life at large as well, and her marriages, her just the experiences in school, and her interactions with her family. That's really the core of the book, I feel like, is her interactions with her family. And that's how the name of the book comes about. Fatty Fatty Boom Boom is that some of her family members call her that when she goes
Really?
back to Pakistan. Yeah. um
Oh, that's funny.
which
Oh
is
no, I don't know.
another.
That's not. I guess that's
Yeah,
kind of
but that's
hurtful.
that's kind of, I related to that in a way, not because anyone's called me that, but because like I grew up in a Jamaican family that has like no filter, and like they just, that's like the first thing that they talk about is your weight. When they like when you see
Very
Jamaican
true.
family that you haven't seen in a while, they'll be like, "Oh, you gained weight." Like
Mm-hmm.
that's like the first thing that they
Put on weight.
notice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so it's funny hearing that it's kind of similar for her, and in a Pakistani family that like that they just freely comment on her weight and her parents' weight, and like, talk about how like, oh, you in America you must be like eating really well, like, and they just freely say it,
Mm.
and are just really upfront about it. And I relate to that because
Common theme is like unsolicited
yeah, just
comments about people. Yeah.
unsolicited comments on your weight and
Or
things that
appearance and yeah.
on your appearance. Yeah, it was just so it was really funny to hear her talk about that. There's a really funny moment in the book where again, this is that when she was in Pakistan for her aunt's wedding, and her aunt took her out to go get some street food, and they um or were trying to catch a bus. And at one point, like, her and her aunt kind of got lost from each other, trying to get onto this bus. And her aunt was worried that she had actually left Rabia outside the bus. And so she was like frantically searching for her. And there's a man on the bus who says, "Don't worry, your baby buffalo made it."
Oh
He says
no.
it in like Urdu, or one of the Pakistani languages, and she describes it in the book, and it's just hilarious. It's just really funny. And so yeah, so I think this book is a great mix of just lightheartedness and funniness. And even though it is dealing with a serious topic of dealing with your weight and self-image, um and I should say that Rabia also experienced some abuse in her first marriage that she goes into
Mm.
a little bit. I just want to put that out there. But overall, this book is very lighthearted mostly, and it deals with this topic in a very interesting and almost fun way, really. So that's what I loved about it. So yeah, so some of the main cultural themes are really just those customs that I talked about, like especially kind of customs surrounding weddings and marriage that she goes into. Um, Visiting family from abroad, and kind of getting to see the culture through her family. She has a very large family back in Pakistan, and so it was so interesting to just see her perspective of things. And yeah, and to see her experience that. She actually seemed to kind of feel more at ease there than I think a lot of times people feel when they go sometimes to their heritage country. I think maybe because she did go there a lot, or go for long periods of time when she was young. But also she was singled out for being kind of like the fat American kid, so there was that. But yeah, I think that's an interesting cultural theme there. And I think that relationship, like I said, between the immigrant experience and food, which maybe we don't always think about, but that idea of coming from a country that has one relationship with food, or one idea of what food is, and then coming to America, which is very different, where your food is oftentimes just more of like an efficiency thing, and you just get
Mm.
you kind of easy to make food, and or easy to grab and food, and that's like not as much of a thing in Pakistan, as it is in the US, and how that affected her weight was is very interesting to read about. um so let's go straight into my favorite quote. So again, this is early in the book, when Rabia is talking about how,
I love that you have the quotes in the book. Like,
yeah,
you're just I
yeah,
wrote mine down and you're like, I'm going
yeah,
straight to
I
the book.
no, well, yeah, I like I love having books in my
That's good.
hands, so
Yeah,
it's
Brianna's
so
a
nice.
book purist, by the
Yeah,
way. Does not do on like e-readers or anything. She has to have the physical
no, I know.
copy. It's
Yeah,
all good.
I'm a
We each have our thing.
I'm a book purist or whatever. Yeah. So I want to read, it's kind of a longer passage, but I just want to read it because I think it kind of encapsulates how it all started for Rabia in her journey with bad eating habits. So I'll start here. Let's see, let me find it. Okay, here we are. Uh, Never could my parents have conceived of a country where you could get an entire meal, greasy, hot, and ready, without ever even having to get out of the car. They were overwhelmed by the supermarkets, the fast food, the restaurants, the thousands of kinds of snacks and sodas and juices and desserts, all cheap and easily available. They'd never seen this many kinds of cookies and chips, cereals and breads, prepackaged meat that you didn't have to go to pick up every day from the local butcher, rows and rows of fruit and vegetables from around the world, both in season and out of season, all in one place. The sheer abundance was a promise fulfilled. By the time we flew back to see the family and loved ones my parents desperately missed, all three of us looked like before pictures in weight loss stories, and no one in Pakistan would let them forget it. So that's just a taste of Rabia's writing, and yeah, I really think you all would enjoy this book if you're looking for something kind of lighter, and just kind of an interesting take on a
Mhm.
cultural experience. So yeah, so I highly recommend it.